Okay, well, we'll go ahead and jump on in and get started here. And welcome to Dialing In Your App Stack. And I am Jay Kimmelman. I am a CPA. I am the founder of the Digital CPA. We are a cloud-based, virtual, although very real, CPA firm based out of Orlando, Florida. And we've been using Xero since 2012. And as a CPA firm, we've been using Xero exclusively with all of our clients. We started that sometime in 2016. So we are very familiar with Xero, how it works, how a business should run on it. And the other part of my bio there is I also am the founder and CEO of Your Digital Practice, which is a consulting firm to help firms set up the correct app stacks to run their business. And right below that, you can see I consider myself a recovering appaholic, as I have not met an app I did not want to check out and spend time with and really dive into it. And we're going to talk a little bit about that as we go through the slides here, about all those aspects of, finding your app stack, building it out, making it useful, and going through all of that. So what is a tech stack? So I have an example tech stack here, and as you see on my screen here, Xero is right in the center of it. And so Xero is the financial hub of my firm, my clients' businesses, and should be of your business. And with its API or application programming interface, it has over 800 integrative apps that are natively integrated through its app marketplace. But its ecosystem, its API interface is so easy, any business can actually build their own interface to Xero if they wanted to. And having been in a position to use their API, I gotta say, talking to companies is really clean and easy to use. And if you can figure this out, you can pretty much roll out whatever you need with your business. So what we're saying here is we have built out a tech stack here that would be typical for any type of business. And basically we have the hub and then the spokes around it. So what we have around there, we have our payroll app, which is how we pay our employees. We have our CRM and marketing automation. That's where we track our customers. We talk about our engagement with our customers, how we send them messaging and interact to their messaging. Between the CRM and marketing automation tool, it might be the same tool. It might be a different tool. It really depends on how you're set up and what you're using at your business. So, it's very flexible. And I'll get into a couple other examples there. And we talk about project and task management. This might be, your task management system. Maybe you're using Trello or Asana, or you're using something along the lines of Teamwork, which we use, or Xero Practice Manager, Workflow Max, depending on what company, type of company you are and what industry you're in. And then, maybe you have a POS or a cash register type point of sale system, or a website that you're doing your sales. And that would be another app that connects in here. And then wrapping all that up, we're talking about dashboards and KPIs. And, as startup businesses, or maybe you're in scaling mode or in maturity mode, KPIs are key performance indicators. And it's so important to have those in your business so you can measure where you are against yourself, your goals, and others in the industry. So all those things come into play, and all those are parts of a tech stack. Now, we're going to talk about taking through the process of finding a tech stack, building it out, and then we'll come back at the end, and I'll give an example of one of the tech stacks that we're using here at the Digital CPA. So first thing is, why have a tech stack? Why do we want this technology in our business? Well, I think the number one reason to use a tech stack is to avoid data entry. Data entry, and from an early age, I learned that doing manual entry in anything is something you want to avoid at any cost. And for me running an accounting firm, I've noticed whenever we do manual entry like that, we are very prone to errors. And then I'm not saying we, I'm saying we as in the public, we are prone to errors. And that's one of those things that we want to move away from. What we want to truly do is get the data from point A to point B and have the systems do it so that whatever is in your system of record is replicated throughout what you are doing. And by doing so, number one, you're avoiding duplication, which takes us to our second response, which is efficiency, but you're also avoiding all those entry errors. So the efficiency side, this is truly where we want to see that the enhancement in the efficiencies. And by eliminating the data entry, we're taking the resource, the human, away from having to do that and allowing it to go from, like I said, system record into the other platform, whatever it might be. And whatever your system of record is could be different. And we could talk a little bit about that towards the end. But what we truly want to do is eliminate that human interaction. Put that human interaction on something that might generate more revenue, or if it is your human interaction, maybe free you up so that you're doing something else, whether it's in the business, spending time with your family, taking time off. You know, it's finding those things that you truly want to or need to do as a business owner and freeing you up to do it. And that's truly where you want to do that. And then the last part of that is we want to build automated processes. By having an automated process, it allows us to truly do what we need to do. And by doing that, it gives us the freedom to, like I said, reallocate those human resources to more revenue generating things and getting us where we want to be. And by building automated processes, we know that that process is going to flow from step A all the way to step Z exactly the same every time. And that's what we want because it delivers consistent results without any errors. And that's truly what we're looking for. So how do we go about developing our app stack? And I will say I talk about this many times a week because that's one of the things that I do. I help develop workflow automations for CPA firms, bookkeepers, tax practices, and for businesses in many other industries. And the first thing you need to do is think of the end in sight. You want to vision what you want to accomplish with your tech stack. And you're thinking, what is he talking about? Well, the number one thing you want to know is, what is the end result you're trying to achieve? You want to land your sales in this platform. And how do we go from the data over here to getting our sales in this platform over here? And then we want to think about all the steps in between there. Now, what we need to do is evaluate. And what I recommend you do is make a list. And these are all of the features that you want to have in your tech stack. You want to capture this data. You want to move this data to this system. You want to change X, Y, and Z to A, B, and C. And just list everything out. So basically, you're already doing this manually. This is everything that you are doing, or you're going to be not reevaluating, but actually creating new processes. So you want to get this done manually before you start mapping this out. Because unless you can actually successfully complete it manually, it makes it really difficult to automate it. So step one, list all your needs or all the features that you're looking for. And then step number two is identify the features as a need or a want. So basically a need is this system has to do this. It must do this. Number two is a want is, okay, I'd be happy if it did that, but it's not necessary. That is something on top of the things I gotta have. So you want to evaluate those. And sometimes you will come through a system that has wants but doesn't meet your needs. And that isn't good, because if you can't get the items that you must have, then all the wants in the world are not going to get you, and they're not going to deliver what you need. So with that, then you want to take your requirements list and then look at the options. So basically, go to Google University, look at the apps that are out there, or if it is related to Xero, go to the Xero app marketplace. Put in the industry or the type of platform you're looking at, and it will give you a list of apps that fit that description. Or if you're in Google, same thing. Let's say you're looking for project management, and it'll show you Asana, Trello, Monday, ClickUp, etc. Well, or you're looking at the Xero app marketplace, same thing there. Take those apps and then start looking at them and seeing which ones have your needs and wants, and make sure that you're finding the apps that are meeting all of your needs and then some of your wants. Make a list, and then the next thing you want to do is sign up for trials for every one of them, and basically use it and try to figure out which one actually works best for you in your flow. So what I recommend is setting up 3 or 4 different trials, and depending on what type of app it is, it will work very differently or very similarly. And what you want to do is try to work with the ones that are very similar together, and set them up, and then take the other ones that are not exactly similar. Maybe ask another member of your team to look at that, or if you have time yourself, do those yourself as well. But what I recommend is diving into the ones that are similar in structure first, because they're simpler to set up for yourself. You can get them rolling really quickly. So what you do is set them up and start using them, and going through the documentation, taking some of their webinars, understanding how they're working, and then try to build your flow around it, and just do a quick pilot of how is this app going to work with me for these functions. And depending on what you're trying to do, and when I say pilot is take a subset of some of the tasks that you have, load them in there. But I would recommend doing the same ones across the board. That way you can see how it's working and how it flows. Because what you ultimately want to do is build a flow from inbox to job completed. And you want to be able to watch that flow and see how that goes through and get that to fruition. So the thing about the trials are usually they'll give you 14 days or 30 days. I always use that up and then some. And what I'll do is a couple of days before my trial is going to end, I'll reach out to their support team or even their in-app help and say, hey, I'm still using the trial. Would you mind extending it? And I would say 95% of the time they extend it and give you more time, and really abuse that trial, really understand how these platforms work when you're using them. And that way you can really get a really good feel for how that's working, so that you can see how it's going to work in your situation. The other alternative there is to reach out to an expert in the technology and see if you can get them to help make some recommendations based on your needs. They might have some guidance or some other knowledge that you might not, that might help you narrow down your choices more quickly and help you figure that out and give you a chance to do a more streamlined trial on fewer platforms to give you a more chance to take a deeper dive into that. And I find that really important to be able to do that, because the deeper you can get into it, the more you're going to know if it's going to work, because more oftentimes you find that it's after you've done the trial, because you haven't thought of every scenario, that things are going to pop up and the platforms are not going to always work for you. So I find it's better to have some guidance on the front end to help limit the number of platforms you're looking at, so that you can go deeper into your trials and really drive that home. So the other thing you got to think about here is when you're doing this, it is not the type of thing that is one and done. So like most apps that live in the cloud, they're being updated constantly. And when I first started using Xero back in 2012, Xero was shut down every third Sunday to apply updates. And now updates are being applied. We don't even know what's happening behind the scenes. And most other apps, you're finding the same thing. We are using a number of apps that are in the accounting space. And what we will find is we will get an email saying, hey, these new apps have gone live. And it's like, oh, yeah, I did see that. I did notice that in the platform. And it's good to know that that's happening. But you really got to know that it's there because it could change your process. If you have something else automated in there, it could break something there. So you want to know about those things and have advanced knowledge. So really staying up to date on the apps you are using is really important. Now, equally as important is knowing what the competitors' apps are doing, because these are apps you've probably evaluated in the past, and there might have been a feature that was lacking that caused you to take the competitor's app and start using it and make it your own. But it's really important to understand what they're doing, and then checking out the new features that are being added, because there might be a feature that your current app doesn't have that then at that point it's like, hey, let's get this feature request in and get that going. And that's why it's so important to stay up to date on these apps. And the last item there is keep your team informed. It's really important that everybody on your team know what's going on with an app and understand the changes that are happening. So what I recommend is, if you have a number of apps that you're using in your firm, you want to have one person that is in charge of maybe these specific apps, and it's their charge to make sure that everybody in the company knows when something changes in it. Just have them at a team meeting say, hey, these are the things that are changing in, let's say, Trello. And this is what I want you to be aware of, and these are the new features, and it's really important to know these because it can change some of the processes that you're doing. So talking about some of this, just to bring that into some real world scenarios, I was evaluating some software in the past, and it was a receipt capture software that works with Xero. And I was doing an evaluation of it, and this was when it first came out. It's called HubDoc, and highly recommend it today. But when it first came out, you take the picture of a restaurant receipt, and it was supposed to do OCR on that receipt and then push that information into Xero for you. Well, it was skipping right over the tip field and just taking the pre-printed amount and pushing that into Xero. Well, we all know that was creating issues for us because we weren't able to match those receipts up. So basically what I did, as I said, I stayed in contact with the app developer, and it's really important that you do that. You contact the app developers and build a relationship with them so they know you. And as we were going through this, I'm like, hey, this is great, but these are some of the features that you're lacking. And at that point, I'm like, I can't use this at this point because this is leaving a huge gap. It was forcing us to do 3 additional steps in order to get that done, when the whole point is to streamline. And basically telling them how important it is. And that's one of the things I can't stress enough, is letting app vendors know what you need and why it's important to you. And I will tell you, within a couple of weeks, it was on their roadmap to get that straightened out. And it was a few weeks after that, I was testing the platform. And like I said, it was about 2014, and we've been using it ever since. And, they really take it to heart. And, those are things that, when you become a power user of a software, and you're making requests from them, they're listening. They want to know what you want because they don't know what the audience wants. They have some research to tell them, but the best research is actually feedback from you, the end user. And it's really important to let them know what you need. So I highly recommend staying in touch with the app, using their support systems. If you have a rep, contact them and let them know what's missing or what's really good and working for you so that they can hone in on it and make sure that you're getting what you need. So those are some of those steps there. So the next thing is, what if my app does not integrate? Well, that's where tools like Zapier and Workflow come in. So these tools actually play the role of conduit. So they sit there, or maybe call it a middleware, so to speak. So they will sit in between two apps that don't have a native API. And where I use that right now is it's a bunch of different steps that we use. So, and this is a great point to talk about one of the workflows that we have at the Digital CPA. So on our front end, we have our website contact form connected to our CRM, which happens to be Salesforce. And what we do there, we capture the lead, and through the API connections, the lead is generated in Salesforce, and at the same time, it's also generated in ActiveCampaign, which is our marketing automation tool. And when we do that, we also create an automation that captures the information from the web request and sends out a calendar request to the prospect to get them to book a call with us. So at that point, we've not done anything. We've received a request from a client. It's gone into our CRM. It has gone into our marketing automation tool and has sent out a request for a meeting on our calendar link, which happens to be Calendly. So, and all of those connect natively. Next step is we have a Zoom meeting, and again, that is connected to Calendly and to my Google Calendar. So once again, all I got to do is click into the meeting. I talk to my client or my prospect, and we have a great meeting. We discuss what they're trying to accomplish. We discuss what their goals are. We discuss how we work. And if we decide that we feel that they will be a good fit for us, at that point, we will then decide we want to send them a quote. So this is the first interaction that we will do. In Salesforce, we will either create an opportunity or move the opportunity, or if it's already there, then move it to the quote stage. Once it hits the quote stage, that triggers an event in Zapier to create a contact for us in our engagement system. That engagement system, now we then go into it, we create our proposal, and instead of having to put in all of the master data, the client name, email address, etc., it's all copied over from our system of record, which happens to be Salesforce. So at that point, we only take a couple of minutes. We create the scope and our engagement. We click send, and that then goes to the prospect where they look at our proposal and either accept it or deny it. And more often than not, they're accepting it. And because of the way our systems are set up, they're accepting them so much quicker than they ever have because it's so much easier to process the data. The other side of that now is once they do click OK, it kicks off three different things. Our engagement tool not only bills and collects our funds for us, it also puts it into Xero for us and reconciles the bank account for us. It creates our jobs for us. So the same tool, Zapier, based on the proposal being accepted, is triggered to create the jobs in Asana, Trello, whatever practice management or project tool that you are using. And the other thing it does, it triggers an onboarding. And so all that happens behind the scenes. We are not doing any of that. And that is the importance of this automation and why we feel workflow automation is so important to what we do. So at that point, we have basically touched that process twice. We moved a pipeline, an opportunity in the pipeline to quote, which then created our contacts in our engagement system. And from there, we put in our engagement details, the scope, the dollars, etc. Other than that, we went from lead to customer or client in 2 steps. I'm not counting the meeting because that's going to happen regardless. So that's one of those things that we just have to do. And it actually helps build the rapport with them, because what we truly want to do is have meetings with our clients every month so that we know exactly what they want to do and what is important to them so we can build value for them. So with that, let's jump ahead and see if there are any questions out there on any of this that we've been talking about. And Skylar hasn't keyed me that there were any at this point, so I think we're okay.
I haven't seen any come through yet.
Okay, excellent. And how much time do we have left in this pit stop, Skylar?
We have, one sec, about 10 minutes.
10 more minutes, okay. Excellent.
Actually, 15 minutes, and we're good.
15 minutes, okay.
Yes.
All right. So as you can see, I built in time for questions here, but talking about apps, and you can see all of the apps on my screen here. These are different apps that we use as advisors with our clients with Xero. And I will say some of these are some of my favorites that we use. So I work with clients in e-commerce, and so Shopify, A to X are some of my favorites. We use the Unleashed app for inventory management. So really depending on what business you are in, it's going to drive what apps you're going to want to look at. And so from a firm standpoint, we have 2 types of apps that we want to build, or 2 app stacks that we build. One is an internal stack, and that's tools we use internally. And then the other is the external stack, or those that we work with our clients. So thinking about what I was just talking about with the lead to onboarding flow, that is pretty much an internal stack, even though it's interacting with clients, but it's not, because it is interacting with them but not actually used with our clients. Whereas if I was looking at the inventory apps or the sales apps that connect to Shopify, or the reporting apps like Fathom or Futurely, those are apps that we work with very directness with our clients. So those would be part of that external stack. And what we want to do is build a solid internal stack. And that's not something that we want to truly change often, because once you build a process, you want to stick with it and actually make it more efficient over time. You know, the only time you truly want to mess with that is if you're finding roadblocks, or if you're having issues with an app that might not be able to be overcome. So with that, I would recommend building your processes first, like I talked about at the beginning. Understand where you want to go from point A to point Z and every point in between, and then use the technology and these apps to enhance this. You don't want to grab technology just for the sake of putting technology into your process, because what it could do if it doesn't fit is create inefficiencies and not deliver what you truly want, which is value add in the process. And that's truly where your app should lie. You truly want them to deliver value add for you, because you want them to pick up the extra slack so that it frees up the resources for you. So with that, that's the important part of having the app stacks and delivering on them.
Hey Jay, we have a few questions coming in through the chat. So there's a question on how would data storage work into a tech stack? And from your experience, what should the top concerns be for building out an open API?
So first thing about the storage with the tech stack, I would look at, like I said, you want to have a system of record and have that be the driver of your technology. But if that's not the case, you want to probably build a warehouse to hold that data. So we have looked at a few other options there. You have your SQL Server, MySQL, you have your Google Cloud, where you can store all of your data and use any of those options. So all of those give you really good options for storing your data, and you could push it in and out from any of those perspectives. And the other side of that is, you're just using the stacks that are already connected to move the data from one platform to another, and you just want to make sure that it stays consistent. And that's one of the main reasons for having that app stack. So the other question is, from your experience, what should the top concern be for building out an open API? Well, number one thing is security. When you do it, you want to build it to the utmost secure methods that are out there. And I believe with the Xero, they use the OAuth 2. And with that, they have all of the documentation on the developer site. And I would reach out to them on the Xero side if you're building into Xero for that, or reaching out to the other apps that you're looking at for doing that. Now, always recommend using multi-factor authentication when you're doing anything with apps and accessing apps, and using tokens whenever possible, because by tokenizing it, you're making sure that even if it is persistent, that token can't be replicated. So hopefully that answered your question, or questions, I should say. Awesome. So is it Jujube? What type of apps are you currently using?